Today, we are going to talk about the second pillars of sustainability, political sustainability, because regarding to the fifth wave theory, we have a model called 7 pillars of sustainability, or 7Ps. Last week, we had the first pillar that was environmental, and today we are going to talk about politics. And now I would start my presentation, something like 20-25 minutes, and then I would ask Professor Diche to do discussion regarding to the question we will ask him regarding sustainability and political sustainability with a focus on legal regulation and the other aspects. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, yes? We can. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yes. I would like to kindly ask you, the participant, please turn off your microphone because of the noise, then I can keep continue. Second pillar of sustainability, blue-green innovative digital system through the fifth wave theory. Why I use the word blue-green and why innovative and why digital? Because in the fifth wave theory, we have some infrastructures like other concepts, theories, and models. And in this case, we have some factors. They are like infrastructure for the fifth wave theory. Blue-green sustainability with a focus on water resources, nature, innovation, and smartness and digitalization. Because in the theory, we will see in the next slide, we have combination of future of industry 4.0 and society 5.0. As Dr. Maria Nadim said, these webinars, this series of webinars, they are like making a background for the conference in October 13, 14, 15, the fifth wave theory. And we would like to invite all participants to attend to this conference, to this huge conference, as you see the poster here. Second pillar of sustainability, politics. According to my research in sustainability, when we talk about sustainability, in United Nations, we have the 3 aspects: social, environment, economy. And also they say peace. But in my research, I found the other factors, they are also so important. Sometimes they can make a really important role, vital role in sustainability to make high sustainability, high quality of life, and livability. That's why we did this research with these sustainability indicators, like political sustainability, 7 pillars of sustainability, infrastructure and development, data and information with the focus on 7 pillars of sustainability condition, information security and diplomacy for influencing imagination or cognition, and social capital, HR competencies and technologies. As you know, in this 21st century, 3 revolutions could shape the 21st century, and we call them D3: decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization. Based on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from United Nations, we know there are different goals like quality education, gender equality, life below water, life on land, peace, sustainable cities, and etc. All these factors, when we want to go to provide them practically, they need some necessities like infrastructure. In last webinar last week, I talked about one example and one project in Copenhagen in Denmark, because I have been living in Copenhagen for 5 years. And then one of the participants, Dr. Diche from Morocco, asked me how we can do it in developing country like Morocco and how we can solve the challenges we have. And I said, most of the challenges is not about technology, is not about the budget. The challenge is about culture and politics and regulation, legal. That's why today we have Professor Diche to discuss about this case. This project, Sustainable Development Goals, was one of the biggest social projects in the United Nations, with 80 questionnaires and 7 million people in almost more than 2 years. As I said, in this case, we have 3 aspects: social, environmental, and economy, plus peace. But in our definition for sustainability, we have livability plus quality of life. I would like to kindly ask you, the participant, please turn off the microphone because of the noise and concentration. And factor for sustainability, there are 4: a changing world, shared value, responsibility, and risk. When we talk about the changing world, shared value, and responsibility, always government and politics has a very vital role. And risk, when we talk about risk, as you know, we have 4 different patterns for risk, like governmental risk, financial risk, enterprise risk, and project risk. When we talk about risk, in this case, governmental risk is very, very important, plus project risk. Then we can say, if we want to have guarantee for sustainable development, political sustainability is a necessity, is a must. Otherwise, it's not possible. This is the 7 pillars of sustainability model. As you see, the 3 factors from United Nations is already there: economy, social, environment, and we have politics, culture, education, and technique. And politics here is our focus. You can see a company, we did calculation for sustainability with the model, the using of 7 pillars of sustainability model. You can see before Corona, the situation of the company was the blue one, more harmonized, bigger. And then during the Corona, you can see what happened to the company. And this is one of our questions from Professor Dicher today, because of his experience and his job as a legal advisor for German Parliament. We want to know what was the strategy, policy of German Parliament regarding to this, and German government. Also, how these governmental activities, this political sustainability could affect on sustainable development in Germany and to manage the Corona situation. According to this model, if we want to calculate sustainability, political sustainability, we need to focus on the other factors, but look at politics as infrastructure. As I said last week, we had the conference or webinar regarding to environmental sustainability. In Germany, I wanted to make solar panel on my roof. And then the local government told me, if you do that, we give you credit, we give you some support. This is very good, because this political activity, these activities can make infrastructure for sustainability. That's why, according to this policy, we can make one goal, and then we can make some criteria. For example, here I made a tree with 5 criteria, and then for each criteria we can make sub-criteria. More sub-criteria, if there are so many, maybe calculation is better to use computer. And then we have one view, 7 pillars of sustainability plus quality of life, and then effective sustainability for political factor is equal sigma probability of this factor times impact of this factor times ratio normal. The 5th wave theory and related models, concept, and theories. I know, also Dr. Maria Nadim already mentioned this theory for the first time. I met in 2010 and then developed and extended until 2017. Here you can see a figure, a short overview of the 5th wave theory. The study was since 70,000 years ago, when we had this first revolution regarding cognition revolution. In this time, people tried to control the ecological system, control the nature. And then in almost 10,000 years ago, agricultural revolution happened. People tried to make villages, cities, to do agriculture, to do farming. And then 500 years ago, scientific revolution happened for some scientific activities. And 300 years ago, during the scientific revolution, industrial revolution happened. And according to this theory, 100 years ago, the first business economic revolution happened. And since 2020, because 2020 to 2030, in my theory called the Age of Tomorrow, we have the second business and economic revolution. And you can see in different levels, we have different societies, different industries. And when we go to Age of Tomorrow from 2020, we have the model called KTB with the focus on knowledge, K, technology, T, and business, B. And then we have Society 6.0 as a new concept for tomorrow's society, and Industry 5 for the future of Industry 4. Why we do this? One main of this theory is to make the world a better place for living. Because, for example, the Corona completely changed the world, completely changed the behavior of people, business behavior, and everything. That's why if we really want to prepare for future shocks, we need to try to make the world a better place for living. Otherwise, we destroy everything. What? The first question from the fifth wave theory is what? Proceeding of future of Industry 4.0, as I said, Industry 5.0, as a symbol of West, because for the first time in Germany, and proceeding of future of Society 5.0, as I called Society 6.0, as a symbol of non-West from government in Japan. This theory want to introduce and support all businesses, especially small, medium-sized enterprises. And as I know, Professor Dice is politically and legally expert in the field of small, medium-sized enterprises, because Germany is one of the best leaders in this case for small, medium-sized enterprises. What? For doing forecast, prevent, and face with today's challenges and tomorrow's crisis. Actually, in my book, The Fifth Wave Theory, I'm going to publish soon in USA. In one chapter, I talk about the corona or COVID-19, and I try to talk about advantages and disadvantages of this situation, because this is, many people, they said just talk about disadvantages, but we have also advantages. Because corona, many people, they think is a crisis, but actually in my book is like a big challenge or risk. And if we look at this from another view, I call it super accelerator, because corona was a reason to push us to use technologies. For example, today, without this online situation, without this platform, that was not possible to have this lecture online for different countries and different people in the same time. Where today's challenges and tomorrow's crisis, like COVID-19, as I said, based off my book, The Fifth Wave Theory, and this is like a super accelerator, have impacted at 3 levels: knowledge, technology, and business. As I said, this is a model I made, KTB, for Age of Tomorrow. Main topic of the Fifth Wave Theory is measurement, the readiness to change into a new age. We are just entering, because after 2020, we enter to the age of tomorrow, and so many happening try to shape our life and change our life. And as I said, this theory combines the symbol of West as future of Industry 4.0 and symbol of non-West, future of Society 5.0. Then we have, for Industry 4, Western concept digitalization, and Society 5, we have ubiquitous, the concept in South Korea. Aim, why? This theory helps us to provide societies blue, green, sustainable as a new concept in 2017, innovative, digital, readiness to do recovery, corporate social responsibility strategies. And in this theory, we have focused on CSR 1.0 and CSR 2.0, corporate responsibility and corporate sustainability responsibility. How? And using innovative infrastructure, open innovation, implementation, development, and application of future of 4 technologies, as I call 5 technologies, that influence, change, and improve education, training, as well as life. And here, politics is like infrastructure. Impact. The expected impact of the Fifth Wave Theory is health care systems reinforced, well, I call it in my book, welfare 5.0. And in some countries like Scandinavian countries, Germany, Netherlands, we have something like welfare 5.0, because the government tried to make some regulation to support this situation. New opportunities for affected citizens to be employed, created. Citizen basic services enhanced, and I call it Urban 6.0 or Utopia. Sometimes in August, I am going to have online speech at University of Strasbourg in France, and my topic is Utopia and Urban 6.0 as a solution for future of cities and sustainable cities. New opportunities for small, medium-sized enterprises to achieve environmental, political, cultural, educational, and all 7 pillars of sustainability. World economy, more residents, and more sustainable. Result of this theory, expected result, is to create communities, societies, cities, businesses, and culture education capable to tackle with future concepts. Conclusion of the theory says we have a new concept, is about hybrid business or SME or small medium-sized enterprises 5.0. My book regarding to this topic will publish soon, and this is ebook and everybody can download and use it. Whose priorities are environmental responsibility is first one, social cohesion and economic efficiency. That's why politics has vital role in this case, because why we have so much problem until now, because most of the cases, they focus first of all in financial benefits, and they didn't care about social cohesion and environmental responsibility. But when politics has a role here, then say, firstly, environmental responsibility, social cohesion, and then economic efficiency. Actually, in my culture, we have a saying in Persian language, we say, چون که 100 آید 90 هم پیش ماست, and that means if you try to get 100, of course you have 90. I already show you the priority of this model with a focus on social, environment, and economy. And you can see we have 3 metrics, and we can do calculation for environmental responsibility as a first priority, social equation second, and economic efficiency the third one. Conclusion of business marketing, business development, business traditional is transferring to innovative data and blue-green sustainable digital business. Political sustainability, a solution for today's challenges and tomorrow's crisis during the age of tomorrow, 2020 to 2030, through the 5th wave theory. Here I'm going to introduce you Matthias Hochs. He is a futurist in Germany. He and his colleague in the German Institute for Future Research, they published a book called Die Zukunft nach Corona. And in this book, they try to forecast the future after Corona and forecast the consequences after Corona. And that was widely reported in German media. He said, Corona era will not end. We never back to normal because we are in one of the historical period called deep crisis. And this period can change the course of future. We are now in this position. In my book, The 5th Wave Theory, in the chapter regarding Corona, I wrote, yes, he's right. We're never back to normal, but of course we are going to another normal, a new normal, because now many countries, they started vaccination, and we can see, and we hope very soon we can go back to work, to social activities in presence. But in a new situation, a new normal, not the normal we already had. According to my research, the world after Corona, we have 12 results. The world will change, behaviors will change, humanity will return, the economy after the contagion crisis is still alive and breathing. The authority and power of most technology companies today, Zoom has so much power. Skype, Google Meet, because today people, they need most of something like 80, they forecasted 80% of businesses, they are transferring on online platforms. And actually, this is also dangerous because of contagion of COVID-19 and reconciliation of technologies. We have privacy risk because of data security and also health risk. Because before Corona, I had to go to work, and that was some physical activities. But now I had to stay home and do home office, and that physically healthy is not good for our health. Intensification of domestic economic shift and crisis, strengthening bonds between people because of understanding the value already existed, and the provision of health medical care is evolving. Medical doctors, nurses, pharmacists, they are in the front line. The submission of the world trade and to regain the opportunity for living in a better way and prosper economy. In 2019, I published an article. The topic was social, cultural, capital, trust, democracy, and velvet revolution as excuse into sustainability. You know, sometimes, as I said, politics is very important, but sometimes what happens, political activities and some other activities, they are just excusing to sustainability, not just really going to gain or achieve sustainable development. I'm going to introduce you Professor Samuel Philip Huntington. He was very famous professor in Harvard University. He, in the age of 23, he began to teach at Harvard, and he had one article in Foreign Affairs magazine and then book about civilization, and the book called Clash of Civilizations. And in this book, he tried to say we are going to have clash of civilization. But in my theory, 5th wave theory, I don't agree with this clash of civilization because I believe we are going to have negotiation of civilization. What happened during the corona? Many countries, they try to help each other, to try to support, to do cooperation. And then his student, Professor Fukuyama, he also tried to do some research in this case. One of the famous books he published was The End of History and the Last Man, 1992, and also Social Capital and Civil Society. And social capital has a very important role in political sustainability, for making political sustainability or just excusing to political sustainability. There are some cognition revolution tools like NGOs, social movements. Can you please turn off your microphone because of concentration? Elites and media and social media. Social engineering and information disorder also, there are techniques. And for information disorder, we have NGO, we have social movement, we have media, and there are some examples in this case. Cognitive warfare is also regarding to sustainability politically. And for cognitive warfare, we have some target human cognition. Firstly, changing views and beliefs for people who already understand the issues. And secondly, the first understanding of everything, especially scared things and beliefs for pure minds. You know, during the corona, you could see how much government, how much political sustainability has important role because of making people relax, reducing the psychological problems, reducing the behavior, you know, some strange behavior for people because of corona. And if we cannot go to this case, then cognitive warfare will happen. Cognitive warfare is much, much more dangerous than the other wars because in this case, as I said, changing the mind or making a new imagination for pure mind will happen. Misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, there are three concepts in this case. Now I'm going to conclude my speech and then invite Professor Diche to come to start to do his speech regarding political sustainability and discuss with us and answer our questions. Fifth wave theory can be a solution to make the world a better place for living. Political sustainability is an infrastructure for the other 6 pillars of sustainability. And as I gave you example, we can politically support social activities, environmental activities. We can politically support education. We can politically support culture, economy. And culture and social, they are very important because after we go movement from politics, we are going to social and culture. Thank you so much. If you have any question, I'm also available to answer your question. But if not, I will invite Professor Diche to start his speech and discussion and answer our questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dost. I would say I had some difficulties to understand all because technical difficulties, but I understand now that I should say some words about how sustainability is anchored in politics. Is it right?
Yes, exactly, Professor Diche. Right? Okay. And in my presentation, I asked you a question. One question was because of your experience with German Parliament as legal advisor, what was the strategy, policies of German Parliament and government to face with something like Corona, because Corona could reduce the sustainability, and how these political activities could help in Germany to improve sustainability regarding to something like Corona.
Oh, okay.
And then also in general, you can talk about sustainability with political approach.
It is, as you said, we had sustainability and sustainable development as a policy, at a political content is very focused now. I think not only in Germany, also in the whole world, but especially in the Western world, the industrial nations, and that's also in fact of the debate about climate change. But during the COVID crisis, the pandemic crisis, there was a new issue focused the resilience of society, of economy, and of environment. And therefore, this whole debate, political debate about sustainable development has a new drive, let's say. Yes, we have now in September the next parliamentary elections, and you can see that these questions are very in focus of the societal and political debates now. We have a very strong Green Party at the moment. In the last parliamentary elections 3 or 4 years ago, they had about 8%, and now if these polls, we can see them, they are ranged between 20 or 25% at the moment, or 28% I read this week. So you can see that in German society, environment, sustainable development, climate change is the biggest issue at the moment people discussing about. Which way we will go, that's one of the big questions for the next period, legislation period of the new parliament. But we have yet a great debate the last years and 10 years ago, but now I think a new focus on how can we anchor sustainability in the politic, in the legislation. A major challenge is the question to anchor sustainability in all 3 dimensions of policy. You know, for example, the political scientists generally speak of the 3 dimensions of politics, of policy, maybe the content, of polity, that means decision-making structures, and politics, that means the decision-making process. We have in the German vocabulary not the same vocabulary for these 3 dimensions. So we also speak about these English terms. And let me say the whole problem is, if you look at the political debate on sustainable development, you will quickly notice that the focus is here on the content, the material content. It means a policy. Yeah? The political implementation of sustainable development as a goal is then very often perceived as unsatisfactory, which is mainly due to the fact that sustainable development is understood as only as policy, as sustainability policy. That means as a separated policy field in distinction from and thus also in competition with the other policy fields, maybe economy, especially the economy or financial politics. That means when it comes to concrete legislation process in parliament, then there is then often a conflict of goals between the sectoral policy goal for a special law draft, yeah, and the goal of sustainable development, which is accordingly often subordinated. Sustainable development this is also nothing new, a cross-cutting issue, and that should be considered in all policy fields, but it is preciously this that requires an extension to all dimensions of policy. That means also at the level of structures and decision-making processes in legislation. A regulatory impact assessment can serve as a model here, as it has established itself in the most industrialized nations over the last 15 to 20 years now, with the cost assessment of draft legislation. Up to now, laws have only been assessed according to their costs for the general public, while the benefits are not taken into this consideration. That the contribution of a law to sustainable development represents the benefit of a law This was the approach of a research project by FHM University on behalf of the Ministry of the Environment in Germany. We started, it's now 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago. I was one of the responsible advisors in that time. This result is the Sustainability Compass as a first instrument for measuring the benefits of law. However, since benefits are much more complex and with regard to the purposes of law, also more extensive than just sustainable development, no model for benefit assessment has been established to date. And so I know nowhere else in the world because of this problem. However, the topic is back now on the political agenda, so that it is possible that at least a new attempt will be made in these next legislative periods after the election end of September with regard to an independent sustainability assessment of draft laws, which could be more significant steps towards anchoring the sustainability in the structures and thus decision-making processes in the legislative process. That's in short what I would give you to introduction. And yes, great debate. You asked Professor Dost about how we get rid of all the problems with this pandemic. Now, at the moment, I would say the main solution is to spend a lot of money for the businesses which could not work for months during the lockdown periods. The lockdown period in Berlin ended now today. Today it's allowed that maybe restaurants, cafes, and so can open without testing before. It's now today the first time since end of October.
Because of vaccination, Professor?
Sorry?
Because of vaccination?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Because of vaccination or another reason?
Yes. Yeah. And therefore, at the moment, the focus is on spend money to help even the small and medium-sized businesses. But the great concept to transformation of the economy, as you spoke in your presentation, from home office and so on, new forms or new needs of mobility and all these things. That's there we are in the process. Let's just wait and see. At the moment, it's only a debate. We need money for help, and then let's see what we can arrange new with them.
Thank you so much, Professor Dice, for this description and answer to the question. I would like to discuss to you regarding to the experience. You already said different projects since 10 years ago at FHM University or at German Parliament and election. Do you think these political activities in Germany, because when we talk about some kind of management in different fields like environment, like technique, like education, always many countries, they prefer to follow German models as lead. And I want to ask you, what was the main secret of this political approach or policies to get sustainable development, firstly politically, and then go to the other pillars? Because you already mentioned government put so much money to financially support the companies, especially small, medium-sized enterprises, because of Corona, to put them back to the market and business. And what do you think? What was the main secret to get this success? But some other countries or some other developing countries, they could not do that. And then maybe they can get pattern and customize these models politically and then use it in their country.
You mean the implementation of sustainability in politics now the last decades
in Germany, especially in Germany, yeah.
Yes. We had even 10 years ago, it's now, I think this month in June, we had in March 2011 Fukushima disaster here in in Japan.
Yeah,
and after that, was the ending of nuclear, of using nuclear technology in Germany. That was in the beginning of June, I think tomorrow, I think the 6th of June, tomorrow, it must be 10 years ago, that Germany decided to get out of nuclear power. That was beginning of a great transformation. But there, I would say there's a different cultural mentality, because I remember when I was a schoolboy, 14 years old, when Chernobyl, the first very big disease, we had the nuclear power plant in Russia. And we have still problems in parts of Germany, that radioactive, maybe mushrooms, and so in parts of Bavaria, or I think deers. I'm born in the Black Forest, and they are still, if they are hunting deers, that they have a great radioactive
the consequences is still there.
I mean, so jetzt, we had the German discussion, and a lot of philosophists say it has to do with Second World War, that there's a big societal trauma against war, and therefore this the great fear of atomic bombing in the Cold War. You could see in France, perhaps they have still, I think, 80% of their electricity is from nuclear power plants, and so in Belgium. And we have discussions because of not really safety nuclear power plants in the Czech Republic on the border to Bavaria, and the people there are not very in fear. And the people when we had the Chernobyl discussion, the first time, what to do, get out of the nuclear power. That was the beginning of the founding of the Green Party. Nowadays, one of the big players in German politics. You have nothing comparable not really comparable in the other states around. And after Fukushima, there was no debate. Maybe in France, I only could say it for France or Belgium, there was nearly no debate, political or societal debate, to get out of nuclear power. But in Germany, there was the very big, the meaning of the very big majority of the people get out of them. So it has historical, psychological reasons for this meaning and for this political decision making. But then we had to start a process, and the process how to make a sustainable energy transition. It costs lots of money, much more than we had. We also calculated in the ministry 10 years ago, much more. So it is a process that costs the people a lot. We have nowadays the highest prices for electricity nearly in the whole world. I would say in the whole world, but people are in the big majority. They okay with this, because they want a change, and want to change to a sustainable energy. And yeah, and therefore, I think this will be the reason that society, there's a big consensus in the society that we can make a change. A lot of people, even this week, we had a great debate now about price for gas and for mobilization. That's costs the lower earning people lots of money, but at the moment we must merely say the big majority is okay with these decisions that politics made there. But let's just wait and see how it would work in future in the next 10 years, next decade.
Thank you so much, Professor Dice. I would like to show you the model to forecast the future crisis during the Edge of Tomorrow 2020 to 2030, and then discuss regarding to this slide video. And now I'm sharing my computer with you, my screen. Can you see my screen, Professor Teacher?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No,
Yeah.
how about now?
Now
Yeah.
I can see, yes.
Okay. Here you can see Professor Diche in this diagram. This is the short overview of the crisis we have from 2020 to 2030 and later regarding to the fifth wave theory. You can see different waves. The first one, the small one, the yellow one, as I said in my book, I call it risk of contagion of COVID-19. The pandemic, I said, is not a crisis, it's a risk. The second yellow one is a bigger one, is crisis of contagion of other biological attacks. Maybe in the near future, we need to prepare ourselves if this happens. The first small orange one is the risk of economic shifts. And then the big orange is crisis caused by recession. The small pink wave is high greenhouse gases emission and climate pollution. And then the yellow, the pink one, the big one, is crisis caused by climate change. The small blue one is technological crisis we will going to face soon, because if we move everything on technological platforms, that's very dangerous, because many people already in science fiction books try to forecast the future. If the robots dominate people, what's going to happen? And if we cannot control them. And the most dangerous one is biodiversity collapse. And if this happens, the world completely ends. Regarding to this model from the fifth wave theory, Professor Diche, I would like to ask you, because of your background in politics and in legal and sustainability, how you think government and politicians can make solution for these different, risks and crises during the Edge of Tomorrow? Is it the question clear?
It is, yes. As I said, we have now we have a discussion since last year about the issue of resilience, resilience of the whole society, of at least mankind, but it's now on national focus, resilience of the political system, of the democracy, and our economical system and the whole society, with all aspects from healthcare and so on. But that's a process started in the last year, and I think this process that's not structured at the moment. Therefore, input from the science, like you and other scientists, is very worthwhile for the political decision makers.
I'm always available if I can do any advice, any help to them, because these are the research I did, and you can see different levels of the crisis. For example, after Corona and biological attack, we are going to face with economic shift and then recession, a great inflation, because so many, as you said, so many businesses, especially in the field of tourism, in the field of hotel, they lost the job, they lost the customers because of pandemic, because of lockdown, and now government should financially support them, and when they want to come back, we have so many challenges in this case. And also beside, we have the greenhouse gas emission problem, climate change, ecosystem, and also technology, because right now, as I said, we have two challenges regarding to using or authority of online platforms, because first of all, data privacy, we don't have any data privacy, and secondly, the health, because as I mentioned, we already started to stay home and do home office, and sometimes we eat the same like before, but no activity physically. And then what happened to us? We lose the health and also the security and the data protection. And then technology is also one. But the most important one is the biodiversity collapse. As you mentioned, for example, 10 years ago in Germany, they decided to stop using nuclear powers because of the consequences. But also we have the other consequences. I can show you the next slide here. Professor Dice, you can see different risks regarding to the 7 pillars of sustainability: culture, education, contagion, health, social, technology. And if you look at the last chain of this challenges chain, you can see risk of consequences, events that never made public, as you mentioned, Chernobyl, as you mentioned, in Japan. And the other tests, we don't know about them. There are so many tests after Second World War happened in the world, we don't know about them, in Pacific Ocean, in Antarctica, and many other places. We don't know about the consequences of the other tests and other activities. That's why these political issues, this regulation, this sometimes restriction can help governments, people to make the world a better place for living.
Let's just say to this that that there's a link between maybe a loss of biodiversity and the danger of new disease. That's now faced by the politic. Yes, that's politic understood that there is a link between lots of problems we have now all together. Yeah, and
exactly.
also climate change. You can see it. We have nowadays very big problems with agriculture, with the forests. There's not enough water. That's changed totally. It's a new phenomenon. Beginning with a very hot year, 2003, before nobody thought about that change. We made 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, in the national strategy of adaptation to climate change, for example, in the Ministry of Environment, so that not only we talk about where are the risks and also where are some chances, maybe even now especially it's for agriculture, that we can have enough good and healthy food and not collapsing the biodiversity. Yeah. One will say very small thing. It's not. If you see it in relation to the big problems, it's a very small positive thing that Germany is nowadays, in the last 20 years. We have the best. We are the producer of the best white wines in the whole in whole Europe. Yeah, in whole Europe, because of the climate change. We have in the last 20 years we had a very good composition of the good soil, maybe along the River Rhine. Yes, Rhine with the castles and so on, and in these valleys with now a warmer climate and enough rain. At the moment, the last 20 years, it's perfect in such regions for growing up white wine. But that may be changed now more and more if we have less water, less rain. The forests have problems, so you can the farmers growing white wine will face with other problems in future, and therefore thinking what can we do to in effect of adaptation. That's also a big issue now in politics at the moment.
The Professor Dice, as you mentioned about this new situation, in my theory, I already mentioned, because of focusing on a small, medium-sized enterprises, in my theory, I'm talking about a new concept, SME 5.0. My book is going to publish soon in USA. In this book, I talk about the new model of small, medium-sized enterprises, but with a changing model, with a focus firstly on environmental responsibility, and then social cohesion, and then at the end, financial benefit. Because the most problem we got until now was always we focus on financial benefit and we forget other things. But in this case, governments, politicians, they have very important role because they can make this restriction for businesses to focus firstly on blue-green business, not just green, blue-green, because also water resources. Now we are going to destroy all water resources and life below water. Because now, because of so many chemical activities in different countries, the waste from this chemical happening, they can destroy the life for below life, like fishes, shrimps below water, and then when we get them and eat, then we got also health problem because of new cancers, new, we have so many new sicknesses because of this. These are all consequences. And as you said, politicians, they really need to know, among all these crises, we have a chain. I already showed you chain of crisis, and we need to really, not let them to merge together. We need to split them. Otherwise, we face with the biodiversity collapse, and the world will end instead of making the world a better place for living. That's really dangerous. That's why we need to really make regulation, make restriction to force the businesses to come to this blue-green area, environmental responsibility. For example, I gave you an example. As I said, I have been living in Copenhagen, in Denmark. There is a company in Denmark called Maersk. And in 2019, Maersk was the first biggest sea transportation and logistic and trading company of the world. But this company is so huge, with 130 ports in 130 different countries, different cultures, but still they focus on blue-green business. They try to support the life below water. They try to reduce using the fossil energy and into mass. They try to go to social cohesion activities, and then the financial benefit. And this is really good example for the companies and the politicians when they want to get a pattern, which kind of business today is successful, also with a focus on blue-green sustainability. And here we can see how much politicians, they are like infrastructure for this sustainable development in practical level.
Let's just say the small and medium businesses, like all entrepreneurs, they want to earn money. Yeah? They want to make money with their products, though it's okay. That's what they have to do. But we therefore that you come to regulation of a economy also facing these problems, these environmental problems, also with their production, if they blender production. That's, I think, the influence of the tax system is very important. We had starting of ecological tax reform in the beginning of the 2000s, I think 2000, 2001. It was nearly focused on energy. Think big in this place and think totally new what we can here do, and that it will be attractive to make a sustainable production. Yeah.
In German, small Maria Nadim, I know you did some research in this case, and I would like to ask you to join to this discussion, and also the other respected participants. Your microphone is off.
Yeah, that's on now. Thank you very much. Quite an interesting discussion, just like the previous discussions we've been having on this topic. Basically, it's quite a vast topic, and after having the insight what we discussed today, and as Professor Hans, Professor Dische, he mentioned in his discussion that, and I also concluded the same point, that the rest of the pillars are more dependent on the political aspect. So, and environmental policies or policies to develop environmental sustainability or cultural sustainability or educational and so on. It's all dependent on political aspect. I just raised hand, got a question on my mind that popped up, that's basically reflects the question raised by Professor shared in the previous discussion in the last webinar, that don't you think that for the developing countries, it is just fairy tale? Because when we just have a look developing countries or underdeveloped countries, politics, that's the area that needs reforms. Politics, and when you say that it is the foundation, the political sustainability is provides the foundation to the rest of the 6 or 7 Ps, then how would we expect the rest of the Ps to be implemented or to avail when there is no political sustainability? I'm talking about the developing countries. And as you've been working, to my knowledge, you've been working about SMEs in Iran also, and some of your postdoc students also working on those projects over there. So
you asked this question from me, Dr. Nadine.
Yeah, especially because that's basically gives a big question mark about the implementation of this 7 pillars theory.
This is a very, very good question, as you mentioned, also wide area, because, you know, in developing countries and underdeveloping countries, the problem is, first of all, culture. I mean, culture is not a problem. Culture is very good. Actually, most of the developing countries, they have the oldest, you know, tradition and culture. But the problem is, they are under some new paradigm, and they think because of modernism they need to forget the culture, and then some values, some ethics, they are not really important now. And then another point, as you said, is education, because they need to make infrastructure for students, for kindergarten, to teach them, to train them from childhood. When they are getting older, they need to face with these cases. Because if they learn when they are child, then everything is different. For example, I give you an example. In my country, some years ago, something like maybe 15 years ago, the police tried to do some cultural infrastructure. And then they said,
sorry to interrupt you, to cut you off. When you say in my country, what do you mean? You refer to Germany or Iran?
No, I'm originally from Iran. Because you asked me about developing countries, that's why.
Yeah.
Iran is one of the developing countries. 15 years ago, police tried to do some infrastructure culturally. And then what they did, they said, children police. And then they tried to make some videos, cartoons for children, and tell them, now you are also police assistant. When you are with your family, when your father driving bad, you need to write the penalty for your father. And then we saw sometimes when children, they were with the parents, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, the child saw the father or mother driving bad or fast or, you know, some behavior, and then said, okay, now I write you penalty, 10 euro you need to pay because you did penalty. And then the father was shaming in front of mother, in front of the others, look, my child is teaching me. And then that was really good, influencing the, you know, behavior. Because the problem is, we have traditional culture, but because of new paradigm, because of modernism, we try to forget them. The second point you ask, okay, how we can make this infrastructure for education, culture, and etc. Because as I said, regarding to my research in these 10 years, the problem for developing countries is really not budget, not technology. Actually, they have, these countries, they have so many intelligent people. But the problem is culture, the problem is politics. Why? Because politicians should make this infrastructure. They need to make, as Professor Dice mentioned, regulation. They need to financially, regularly, from social view, support the people, the families, the businesses. Otherwise, this is not possible. Because you ask about reforming the politics, maybe we should say they need to do restart. You know, they need to look at what they did before, what was the results, and now they need to go to a new process to get productivity. They need to do something productive. And this, according to my experience, because I live in Germany, and during these 5 years, I tried to transfer, and also before that in Denmark, transfer this knowledge, these practical activities and success to my country. And in this transfer, I saw what is the problem. Problem is We need to learn what they do and then try to customize them according to our culture. And then, as Professor Diche mentioned, to advise, sometimes someone like me should advise the politicians. They need to have advisors. They need to have theoretical advisors, practical advisors. Then they can do, as he mentioned, making decisions. Otherwise, the parliament, they do make decision, but this decision making is not really productive. It's not really cooperative. This is not really for people. This is something just good for a group of people. And this is a real mistake we do, because if we are all in a big ship, if we try to be safe, we need to make everybody safe, because we're in the same ship. If someone else make a hole, also maybe at first they go under the water, but after sometimes we also, this happened to us, because according to the slide I showed you, then biodiversity collapse happen, everybody will end. That's why the main thing, as you said, restart, reform, yes, it is necessary, but if they want to make it right now correct, the best methodology is to use or getting advice from advisors, theoretically and practically. And also, if you agree, I would like to ask the same question from Professor Diche because of his experience. Professor Diche, can you hear us? I think your microphone is off.
Yeah, he's mute. His microphone is on. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can
Yes.
you hear me now?
Yeah.
I had some difficulties. I think that you had a question to me, but I could not understand your last question.
I would like to ask Dr. Maria Nadim to ask the question again regarding this political, changing in political situation in developing and develop or underdeveloping countries. Can you please pardon your question, Dr. Nadim?
Thank you, Professor Dust. Professor Diche, I got a question basically that was raised by one of our colleagues in the previous webinar, Professor Shed from Morocco. She commented on this theory of Professor Dust that don't you think that it seems more like a fairy tale for the developing countries? And then keeping in view today's discussion, as we discussed that the base that's been provided for all the 7 pillars or the 6 pillars, that's politics, right? And politics, that's the area that's suffering and the developing countries the most, as far as the devotion or the count, that's really suffering in developing countries. And they think that it's all the 7 Ps, the sustainability of culture or education or other areas. That's not possible until and unless there is some sustainability in politics, and that's not really existing in most of the, or rather, all of the developing countries, or 90–95% of the developing countries. So when they don't have the political sustainability, how would we go for the rest of the areas? Now, my question to you is that, as a legal advisor to the German Parliament, what do you suggest to the other developing countries' governments? How to step on, how to take the first step if they want to move on to this road of sustainable development?
I did not understand all. I have problems the last minutes, but I think I answer now what I think, what I heard. Can you understand me? Can you understand me now?
Yeah, I do. Shall I rephrase it?
I have always breaks in it. The last minutes, it's a little bit a problem here. But the last 5–6 minutes, it's always breaking a little bit.
Maybe I can shortly tell you the question in one sentence, Professor Diche. Dr. Maria Nadim asked you, because of your experience, why developing countries, they have always political sustainability problem, and how they can make solution for solving this, because they are developing countries, and always the problem for making the other pillars of sustainability, environment, technique, education, culture, they are depending on the fundamental, and the fundamental is political sustainability. How they can, you as a person, academic person and practical person in the field of sustainability politically, how you can give them solution, how you advise them?
So I had the same problem. Sorry, because developed countries, I would focus more on the chances than on the problems, because it is much more difficult to transformation of a developed in industry, a big industrial economy and society. It's much more difficult to change and transform this than in otherwise to develop to go into in a developing process. And so it is a big chance, I think, even for the developing countries, that that these needs of a global change and transformation to a sustainable development give here impulses to the economy. That's just, for example, I'm not really now the experts for development policies, but we have at the moment a big discussion in the EU, especially in Germany, because we go out of nuclear power and also of fossil power, and how to close this lack. And there is a need, a lot of green energy, green gas. Yeah, green gas is a very big issue at the moment for the economy, and there will our partners, because the sun is not so intensive shining in Middle Europe, and there are the big players of the futures, the Maghreb states. Yeah, Morocco, you introduced from the professor from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, they are now very close with the European politics in developing here solutions to make big solar plants, yeah, for getting what is this gas we need. And if you have economical development, then the people have more income, and people who are more independent in making and deciding their own life, they will change the society.
Yeah,
that is the key. That is the key to change society. And if that there are often very big problems with the political systems. I think it's connected, very often connected to inside wars because of economical bad situation of people. So there are very big chances to develop. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Dürr.
No, I could hear not. No, it.
Dr. Nadim,
can you hear me now? Now I can hear you. Okay.
I can hear you. Yeah, that's fine.
Was it the question to the answer to your question?
Yeah, definitely. Got some idea. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I would like to add one more point in my answer.
Okay.
First of all, I'm thankful from the Professor Dice because of the answer. I can conclude his answer. The politicians in developing countries, they need to put more energy for their people. Then the society by themselves can try to support government to do sustainability politically. But besides, something else is really important because of my experience in my country, Iran. One of the most important problems we had in Iran is we had so much natural resources. Because when you have natural resources like oil and gas and the other resources, then you don't have motivation to go to new activities to do something else. Then you say, especially politicians, then you can make your budget depend on oil and gas. And then the other activities, environmentally, politically, technically, education, they are all gone. But if we look at this and say, like as he mentioned, Germany, Copenhagen, in Denmark, they don't have natural resources. Then what they need to do, they need to come to innovation. They need to come to get help from the society. And then what do they do? One point Professor Dice mentioned, high tax. They do high tax, but make a good social system for people, and then people give them feedback to support the government. And something else, this happened in Denmark. They try to change waste to energy because they don't have resources. Then this is also, environmental sustainability, also making new energy. Or in Germany, they try to go to new modern technologies to use thermal energy, biomass, and etc. instead of using fossil energy. This kind of, natural resources is also like problem for these developing countries, because this can kill the motivation for politicians to do something new.
Thank you very much. That was quite a detailed response from Professor Doost and Professor Duscholz. I really appreciate the details you have provided here. And I wish that Professor Dr. Shoaib would be here, but because of some official engagement, she couldn't join us today, but definitely we'll be having her in the upcoming webinars. Any further questions from the participants today regarding the political sustainability? Basically, what I believe that all the 7 Ps are interconnected, and not just one. When we talk about political sustainability, obviously it's not possible until and unless there are the rest of the 6 parts would be focused on, and it would go from all the ends. So I believe that it's quite a dynamic sort of structure, the model you have provided, the 7 pillars of sustainable development. I always, whenever I just come across to some sort of discussion, especially about this theory, I always wonder that from where to start. So I believe that by the end of all these webinars, and when we'll be concluding these webinars and moving on towards the conference in October, we'll definitely reach to some conclusion that from where to start, and passing those details and recommendations. You'll be able to pass those recommendations not just to the German government, but to globally to all the governments, those who are interested across the world, because this is just to make the world as a better place, not just to make one country or one region. So thank you very much, and we'll be moving on to conclude this very informative session today. I'm really grateful to professors here, to the speaker and the co-speaker, Professor Doost and Professor Duche. I believe that I'm not really mispronouncing, or really just apologies from my end if I'm not pronouncing the name.
I think Diche.
Diche, okay, yeah. Professor Dr. Hans Diche, thank you very much for your presence